6 mythical creatures that really existed. Part 13. Every culture on Earth, separated by oceans and centuries, described the same thing. Creatures that were more than one animal at once. Part lion, part eagle, part human, part scorpion, part bull, part god. For thousands of years, science called these impossible. But the more we study the ancient world, its fossils, its ecosystems, its diseases, its psychology, the more we realize that these composite creatures weren't invented. They were observed. Tonight, 6 hybrid monsters, and 6 reasons to believe the ancients knew exactly what they were describing. The hybrid creature is the most universal image in human mythology. Every civilization that ever existed produced them. Beings assembled from parts of real animals, combined into something that shouldn't exist, but somehow feels inevitable. Tonight, we look at 6 of the most compelling. 6 creatures whose composite descriptions turn out to have precise scientific roots, and 6 moments where the line between mythology and natural history disappeared entirely. Creature number 1, the manticore, the face of a man, the body of a lion, a tail that fires venomous spines. Ancient Persian scholars described it with the same clinical precision they used for real animals, and the creature behind it is still alive today. The manticore appears in the writings of Ctesias, a Greek physician who served at the Persian royal court in the 5th century BC and compiled accounts of animals from across the Persian Empire's vast territory. Ctesias was not a fabulist. He was a doctor, trained in observation, employed by one of the most powerful courts in the world. His description of the manticore is specific. The size of a lion, red fur, a human-like face with 3 rows of teeth, a tail ending in a cluster of spines it could fire like arrows, and a voice that combined the sounds of a flute and a trumpet. It lived in India. It ate humans. It left no remains. The triple row of teeth is the first key. No mammal has 3 rows of teeth. But the description, rows of teeth visible simultaneously, arranged in a way that seemed impossible, matches precisely what an observer unfamiliar with large constrictor snakes would describe when watching a python feed. Large pythons have teeth curved backward in multiple visible rows on both jaws, designed to grip and prevent escape rather than to cut. Seen at close range by someone who had never encountered such an animal, those teeth would be described exactly as Ctesias described the manticores. The spine-firing tail connects to a different real animal, the porcupine. Indian crested porcupines, among the largest in the world, do not fire their quills, but the quills do detach on contact and embed in anything that touches them, and the animal can charge backward into a predator, driving the quills in. Ancient accounts of this behavior, transmitted through multiple translations, could easily produce the impression of a creature that launches spines from a distance. The manticore, in the most precise scientific reading available, is a tiger or lion, the apex predator of the Indian subcontinent, whose description has been combined with observations of the Indian python and the Indian crested porcupine, filtered through the distortions of trade route transmission across thousands of miles. 3 real animals. 1 impossible legend, and Ctesias, the physician, writing it down as carefully as he could with the information he had. Creature number 2, the griffin, half-eagle, half-lion, the guardian of gold in ancient Scythian legend. For 2,500 years, it was considered pure myth, until a paleontologist realized the Scythians were describing something they had actually found in the ground. The griffin, the creature with an eagle's head and wings on a lion's body, appears across an extraordinary range of ancient cultures: Greek, Persian, Assyrian, Egyptian, Minoan. It guarded treasure. It was associated with the sun. It was fierce, loyal, and unkillable by any ordinary means. It was carved on palace walls, painted on pottery, worked into gold jewelry. And it was, according to every ancient source, found specifically in the gold-bearing regions of Central Asia, in the territory of a nomadic people the Greeks called the Arimaspians, who fought the griffins constantly for the gold the creatures guarded. The paleontologist Adrienne Mayer, in her landmark 2000 book, The First Fossil Hunters, proposed an explanation that transformed the academic understanding of griffin mythology. The gold-bearing regions of Central Asia, where griffins were said to live, specifically the Gobi Desert and the Altai Mountains, are among the richest sources of Protoceratops fossils in the world. Protoceratops was a beaked dinosaur, roughly the size of a large dog, that lived in exactly these regions 75 million years ago. Its fossilized remains erode out of the desert surface regularly, producing skulls with a prominent beak, a large crest-like frill, and 4 sturdy limbs. The skeleton has no obvious wings, but the frill, seen by someone without a framework for fossil identification, could be interpreted as folded wings. The beak is unmistakably eagle-like. The Scythian nomads who crossed these territories regularly, who traded gold from these regions with the Greeks, encountered Protoceratops fossils exposed by desert erosion, and described what they saw: a creature with an eagle's beak, a bony crest, 4 legs, and association with the gold deposits of the region. The Greeks received this description through trade networks and built a legend from it. The griffin is a fossil. The guardian of ancient gold was a dinosaur skeleton, eroding from a desert that still produces its bones today, still lying in the rock that the nomads crossed on horseback, still looking exactly like what they said it looked like 75 million years after it stopped being alive. But the next creature wasn't inspired by a fossil. It was inspired by something that still burns today. Creature number 3, the lamassu, a human head, a bull's body, eagle's wings, the protective deity of Assyrian palaces, and the real animal behind it was one of the most dangerous in the ancient world. At the entrance to every major Assyrian palace, at Nimrud, at Khorsabad, at Nineveh, there stood figures that combined 3 of the most powerful things the Assyrian world knew: the intelligence of a human, the strength of a bull, and the freedom of a bird. The lamassu. Massive carved stone figures, some reaching 5 meters in height, positioned so that they faced forward with 5 legs, 4 visible from the side suggesting movement, and 1 additional leg visible from the front, suggesting stillness. The lamassu was both guardian and threshold, a being that existed at the boundary between the human world and whatever lay beyond it, specifically designed to prevent evil from entering and to announce the power of whoever lived inside. The 3 components of the lamassu were not random. Each one was the most powerful example of its category in the Assyrian world. The bull, the aurochs, stood 6 feet at the shoulder and was hunted by Assyrian kings as a display of royal courage. The eagle was the apex aerial predator, associated with divine vision and solar power. The human face represented intelligence and divine favor. The Lamassu was not a fantasy. It was an equation: maximum strength plus maximum vision plus maximum intelligence, combined into a single guardian. Here's the zoological layer that researchers find genuinely interesting. The Near East of the Assyrian period contained real animals that combined aspects of these categories in ways that would have seemed to observers almost supernatural. The Asiatic lion, now extinct across the region, was an animal of extraordinary power that the Assyrian kings hunted from chariots and depicted obsessively in their palace carvings. The Lammergeier vulture, the bearded vulture, was the largest flying bird in the region and was associated across multiple Near Eastern cultures with divine power and death. And the aurochs, as we covered in an earlier video, was real, enormous, and genuinely terrifying. The Lamassu combined everything the Assyrians feared and respected into a single form, and everything that went into it had been observed, hunted, and survived by the people who built it. Creature number 4. The Girtablilu. Half human, half scorpion. Guardians of the gates of the underworld in ancient Babylon. And the real scorpion species that may have inspired them is large enough to make the legend seem almost modest. In the Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest works of literature ever written, predating Homer by over 1,000 years, there are guardians at the entrance to the underworld who appear nowhere else in the ancient world. The Girtablilu, scorpion men, human from the torso upward, scorpion from the waist down, their heads touching the sky and their terror covering the mountains. They guard the passage of the sun god Shamash through the mountains at the end of the day. They are fearsome beyond description, and yet Gilgamesh approaches them, speaks to them, and they allow him to pass when they understand his quest. They are not simply monsters, they are threshold beings, creatures that exist at the boundary between the human world and what lies beyond it. The scorpion, as a mythological figure, carries specific weight in the ancient Near East that it doesn't carry in other traditions. The Middle East and Central Asia contain some of the world's most dangerous scorpion species, including Androctonus crassicauda, the fat-tailed scorpion of Iraq and Syria, which is responsible for more human fatalities than any other scorpion species on Earth. Its sting can kill an adult human in hours. In a world without anti-venom, in a region where these animals were encountered regularly in the desert, the scorpion occupied a category of danger that warranted mythological status. The Girtablilu's half-human form connects to something that researchers studying ancient Near Eastern iconography find significant. Scorpions in the ancient world were associated with the goddess Ishtar, with warfare, and with the boundary between life and death, specifically because their sting could produce, in severe cases, a neurological syndrome that included hallucinations, paralysis, and a state that witnesses described as resembling death before recovery. A culture that had watched people survive scorpion envenomation and return from something that looked like death would have reason to place scorpion beings at the threshold of the underworld. The Girtablilu guarded a boundary. The real scorpion they were built from crossed a biological boundary that no other animal in the ancient Near East regularly crossed, the boundary between the living and the apparently dead. Creature number 5, the Chimera, a lion's head, a goat's body, a serpent for a tail. It breathed fire. Ancient Greeks placed it in Lycia, a specific region of modern Turkey. And the geology of that exact location explains everything. The Chimera is one of the most specifically located monsters in all of Greek mythology. Most mythological creatures exist in vague, distant places, beyond the ocean, at the edge of the world, in countries that no Greek had visited. The Chimera was in Lycia, a real place, a region of southwestern Turkey that Greek traders and travelers knew. The hero Bellerophon, riding the winged horse Pegasus, flew over Lycia and killed the Chimera from the air, the only way to approach it because its fire breath made ground approach lethal. The creature burned. The land around it burned. And something about Lycia, specifically, produced this creature in the Greek mythological imagination. Here is what Lycia actually contains. One of the most remarkable geological features in the Mediterranean world. At a site called Yanartash, the burning rock, natural methane gas seeps from vents in a mountainside and ignites spontaneously on contact with air. The flames burn continuously, day and night, year-round, and have done so for as long as recorded history reaches. Ancient sailors used the flames as a navigation landmark. The Lycians built a temple to Hephaestus, the god of fire, on the site. The flames are real, geological, and extraordinary, a mountain that burns without any visible fuel, in a landscape that otherwise appears normal. The Chimera's fire breath in this context is not supernatural. It is geological. A traveler approaching the burning mountain of Yanartash at night, in a landscape that would otherwise be dark, would see flames emerging from the rock with no obvious source. The lion, the goat, and the serpent, the three animals that make up the Chimera's body, are all native to the Lycian landscape and are all animals that would be found near the mountain's lower slopes. The composite creature is the composite landscape, a mountain that burns, inhabited by the animals of the region, producing fire from its own body. The Chimera was never a single creature. It was a place, a specific, real, geologically extraordinary place, given a body and a name. Creature number 6, the Zmei. A three-headed dragon from Slavic mythology. It flew, it breathed fire, and the real phenomenon behind it was one of the most terrifying things the ancient Slavic world ever witnessed, a phenomenon that still happens today. In the mythology of Russia, Ukraine, Poland, and the wider Slavic world, the Zmei, sometimes called Zmei Gorenik, the mountain serpent, is the most powerful and most feared creature in the tradition. 3 heads, each breathing fire. Wings wide enough to block the sun. A body of scales that no blade could penetrate. It lived in the mountains, descended to steal cattle and people, and was fought by the greatest heroes of Slavic legend, Dobrynya Nikitich, Ilya Muromets, in battles that shook the earth. When one head was cut off, 2 grew back. It was, in every sense, indestructible by ordinary means. The 3-headed fire-breathing dragon that descends from mountains to destroy appears independently, not just in Slavic tradition, but across the Indo-European world. In Norse mythology, in Greek mythology, in Persian mythology, in Indian mythology. The universality of this image across cultures that were once connected but had separated thousands of years earlier suggests a shared ancestral observation, something that the Proto-Indo-European peoples witnessed and encoded in mythology before they separated into the cultures we know today. The most compelling natural candidate is something that the mountain regions of Eastern Europe and Central Asia still produce with devastating regularity: large-scale wildfire driven by wind through mountain forest, advancing on inhabited valleys below. A wildfire crown fire, the most dangerous form, where fire spreads through the treetops, advances with a roaring sound, produces billowing smoke columns that rise like heads, and generates its own wind system that drives it forward with a force and speed that feels directed, intentional, alive. A crown fire seen from a valley below, advancing down a mountain slope at night, would present exactly the image the Zmei describes. A creature of multiple heads, breathing fire, descending from above, impossible to stop, leaving nothing alive in its path. The Zmei was not a creature, it was a fire, and the mountains that produced it in ancient Slavic territory are still producing it today. Every summer, in the same forests, in the same mountains, with the same terrible speed. If this video changed how you see mythology, share it with someone who still thinks these were just stories. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And before you go, if you could see one of these creatures alive for just 1 minute, which one would you choose? Drop it in the comments. We read every single one. And if there's a hybrid creature you want us to cover next, tell us below. You might just see it next week. See you there. Maybe mythology was never fiction.